As many of you probably know, I'm a professor within SPIA in the C-PREE, Center for Policy Research on Energy and Environment, joint with Civil and Environmental Engineering. It's my pleasure to welcome you to today's Bradford seminar, which will be given by Dr. Angela Fasnacht. Unlike most of our speakers who hail from academia, Angela has spent her career as a private sector executive with a focus in the water utility sector. Her experience spans the United States, Latin America, and East Africa. She's worked for both grassroots, nonprofits organizations, and prominent corporations. She's here currently as a distinguished visiting fellow at the Princeton Andlinger Center for Energy and Environment. Her work here includes efforts to decarbonize the water sector. She's teaching a course on that this semester, and she'll discuss that today. And she's also coordinating a workshop next semester on PFAS, which are per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They're highly stable molecules, often called forever chemicals, which are getting a lot more attention now. They've been used increasingly since the 1940s because of their remarkable water repellent properties and spoil repellent properties. So they're used on Teflon pans and couches and furniture and all sorts of industrial applications. But according to the CDC, have been found to have a variety of adverse health impacts, including in humans, increased cholesterol levels, cancer rates, decreased birth weights, and effects on the immune system. And so we're coming under increased scrutiny now, and there's work being done to figure out how they should be regulated in ways that are effective. Prior to joining Princeton, Angela has held a variety of leadership positions, including as Vice President for Technical Services at Suez, a water and waste company whose purpose is to conserve water and create value from waste in the form of recycled materials and energy, and Vice President of Transformation for Viola, an industry-leading water technology company which has recently acquired Suez. Angela Fasnacht's contributions have been nationally recognized by the National Association of Water Companies, lauding her for innovative digital solutions, pioneering policies to reduce environmental impact, and enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of water and wastewater operations. Please join me.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for having me here. Although you already learned who I was, right? I'm just going to give you some more background on who I am or how I came to be in this industry. So then the rest of the presentation makes sense on how do you connect the dots in here. So first of all, I am Colombian. So this accent, I own it. I was born in Colombia, born and raised in Colombia. I am a professional engineer that's in the civil and environmental engineering area. I have a master's in public health, which is, I'm saying like, whoa, what? Is because whenever I did the master's, now it's more often to see engineers in public health, but before it was very rare. So whenever everybody was asked the question, what is your background? It was something else. Maybe biology, maybe nursing, maybe psychology, maybe policy. Engineer would say, why are you doing here? And I'll tell you why later. I'm an immigrant, of course. I came to this country 23 years ago, and yes, I don't have option to remove this accent anymore. You know, it's been half of my life. And the way that I came, which I will point it out later, it makes the more reason to be able to be in this area of my work. I'm a mother of 4. I have 4 little children, and that's why, not little, my little is the one who is in the picture playing soccer. So I was getting wet yesterday in soccer. I did a doctorate in environmental engineering, which I finished with 4 kids. Please do it before you have so many kids. And I've been for 25 plus years of experience in government, nonprofit, and corporations. Lastly, I'm an entrepreneur. And I'm saying it because you may be already at the professional career or maybe studying as students of different levels. We always have to be an entrepreneur, whether you have your own company or not, because you are creating every single day. You are creating solutions, whether it is a solution for the university, a solution for the community, a solution for a company that you work with, or a solution that you are creating on your own name of the company. Please bring that entrepreneurship mindset all the time. It will change and transform the environment where we are. So today, I want to talk, I brought the topic about sustainable development goals. How many of you know about what sustainable development goals are? Wow, I'm so glad you really have that grasp. So this is the latest information that we have in terms of how are we doing, specifically for the water and gender area. So we have, as of now, as of 2019, 2.2 billion people lacking access of safely managed drinking water services. 2 billion people depending on health care facilities without basic water services. Okay, so I already mentioned healthcare. 1.5 of the global population, or 4.2 billion people, lack of access of managed sanitation facilities. We have almost 300,000 children dying under the age of 5 because of preventable causes due to water and sanitation issues. We have still 2 billion people living in countries with experienced water stress. And we have 90% of natural disasters related to weather-related situations. So as the list goes on, and we talk about, I'll go over this into more detail, we can see that there is a lot of connection between water and other sectors. And sometimes I feel with the SDGs, and I just was there for the Climate Week last week in New York, and I was at the UN Water Week in the spring this year in New York. I feel that when it comes to the SDGs, we are doing okay, but also we're still in a lot of competition with the different sectors, because the needs are unique, and we are very comfortable developing things in our own alley. But what we need to know is that pretty much all the sectors, but more so water, is connecting multiple sectors. For instance, I mentioned healthcare is connecting healthcare. So health is connecting gender, it's connecting education. If we have women unable to produce and having to walk to different places to fetch water, for instance, we are making them unable to go and build a company, their own small enterprise, to be able to improve economic improvements. So water is really in the center of many aspects, and we need to keep thinking about that, even though there are 17 SDGs that we need to talk about. So since you know about the SDGs, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this slide. It's just for your information that these are the 17 SDGs. And the one thing I would say is that I was in the process when the first cohort of non-SDGs but MDGs came to be. That was in 2000. So I was actually working in here in the US already, where the first MDGs came to be. And I will say something at this point, which I was thinking to say later. At that point, I was here in the US working with municipal governments as a water engineer. And I had just come from Colombia from working in development. And I felt that I had to split my life, and I was living 2 parallel lives. I was living the life of working in government, in the municipal water as an engineer, working on a more sophisticated solutions, and on the side, volunteering with organizations to be able to get through the MDGs and figure out what that is and all of that. Finally, now in the SDGs era, I see that there is more connections. I don't have to wear one hat or the other, that there is more connection, and there is the realization that this world is one. So whatever we do with water, for instance, it's one water. With the water that we are using here, or the impact that we're doing of misusing the water, or is going to be felt elsewhere. So we need to act now as it is one. So that's the hopeful feeling. So going a little bit more in depth into the SDGs, specifically for water, there are So these are all the lists for SDGs that are associated to water in the SDG 6. So the first two are the ones that similar, they were written in similar ways from the MDGs to the SDGs, so it's from the Millennium Development Goals to the Sustainable Development Goals. By the way, the MDGs we did okay. So that's how the SDGs came to be, saying you did okay, but then we need to do much better. Now we have more time frame. So it is, the first one was achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. And the next one is achieve access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene for all. So the fact that this one is talking about safe water and is talking about affordable water, those are two new things, words that are minimal but are very important, because now we're making definitions about what is safe, right? What does it mean as safe water? So safe water will be hopefully the water that you just drank today, right? That's safe water. You have it. It's water that is safe for consumption, that you feel comfortable drinking it. Water that is coming from a borehole, for instance, or a protected hand-dug well in different locations, or water that's coming from a surface water plant that has been disinfected and going over all the processes, right? That's safe water. Affordable water. What does it mean, affordable water? That you don't have to spend half of your salary to be able to buy it, right? That's a metric that is really, really important, and even more now, where we need to know that we need to have a solution for water somehow. How are we going to approach that? So I'll go over that with another example later on. Now, the access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene for all. It is dignity, you know. It is out of dignity that we need to have access to sanitation. The metric in here is that it's not a common sanitation solution. It is you have your solution in the household. So that's how the metric is reading, and that's how we are evaluated against. So that means that we have a toilet where we live, right? Everybody has a toilet where you live? Is that okay? I'm glad you do have a toilet. So this one also added one very important component is hygiene. And throughout the pandemic, the COVID time, is when we must realize, oh, we need to wash our hands. And how do we wash our hands and all of this? Before that, in many instances, most of the population will be washing their hands after eating, because you're evidently dirty, and not before eating. And that's something that it feels strange, but that's a practice that is not only in low-income countries. It's been in many places, and so we proved that during the pandemic. So that's the hygiene component in there, making sure that you have a way to be able to practice your hygiene processes at home. And then it goes, the beauty of this section is that also it goes in other aspects, that it feels that the first two are very basic, right? Meaning, oh, that's talking about low and middle-income countries. I don't know. Maybe yes, it's too basic. But then it goes to the other two that are really involving other sectors, other players in the society. For instance, the improving water quality and reducing pollution is talking about wastewater treatment and or maybe reuse water facilities, right? And that is a place where countries that are more developed, that have more opportunities, could play a role, and also innovative solutions could play a role and offer hand to other communities. Or the increase of water use efficiency across all sectors. So we're talking about the one water that we are collecting and using, but it's the same water that somebody else will not use if we are misusing that water. So that goes back again to the higher income societies too. Implementing integrated water resources management, that has been there all the time. And the restore water-related ecosystems, that goes back again to more of the biodiversity component, which also is really playing a huge role right now with climate change. And expand the international cooperation and capacity building support to developing countries and in other areas. So how are we doing? I took this from the 2021 update. it's good to see the metrics, but it's not good to see how the metrics, we're doing okay, not 100% fine. Now we're actually very behind in the SDGs. The universal access to safe water and affordable water, drinking water, is about 71% of the global population is still is using safely managed drinking water services, but then there is much more work to do that we need to work on to be able to achieve the goal by 2030. Access to hygiene and sanitation. The one place where we really improve here is in, you're eating, but I have to say it, open defecation rates have decreased enormously. So that's a great achievement, but we still have to do more. And I would say that is an opportunity there. There was an opportunity there for micro enterprises, and how in some areas where that practice was more common, micro enterprises and innovative solutions like mobile toilets were able to decrease that count greatly. Improve water quality and increase recycling. We're talking about 80% of the world's water is still released in the environment without treatment. 80%. We still have 80% of wastewater going to our environment right after you flush the toilet. So that's really scary and still happen. And the high-income countries treat about 70% of the wastewater. 38% for low-income countries. That goes back again to affordability and technology, right? Because technology is there, right? But who's going to pay for that? At the end of the day, it's the ratepayers. And those ratepayers are going to be different players in different parts of the world. Increase water efficiencies and address water scarcity. So that has improved, but it's still we're still having a disparity in there where 25% for over 2 billion people living in over 60 countries that are still in the water scarcity environment. So there is a big disparity in the water efficiencies. Implement integrated water resource management. 60% of the countries have reported that they have implemented integrated water resource management as of 2020. Protect and restore water-related ecosystems. That has seen an improvement in the freshwater species, which is promising. Expand international cooperation and capacity building. There have been an increase in commitment, especially lately also in commitments at different levels, but it's still the commitment needs to be translated into funding and then actions. So that's the place where we still have to work on. And local community participation in water and sanitation management, that's very important, and the community participation everywhere is crucial for the success of any project. So I'm going to give you an example of one of the projects that I worked in Ethiopia when I was in East Africa. This was with the Millennium Water Alliance. This is a group of organizations, nonprofit organizations that got together to start speaking with one voice regarding the sector. That was back in 2003 when they started, I think. The program didn't exist before. I was the first employee of the program, and my mission was we put out this grant to the USAID and see if we are able to coordinate all these different NGOs and see if they can work together somehow cooperatively to address the MDGs. That was at the time of the MDGs. These are most of these non-profit organizations. They want to do their own leadership. They want to get, everybody's competing for funding. That's how NGOs work. The idea is that we were not competing. We needed to be complementary. So the way that this was designed is the program in Ethiopia is to understand their skills and their abilities, and being able to place the organizations in the right solutions at the right place, and being able to start doing these cross-learning opportunities among them. For instance, if there was a hand dog well done in a specific way, that fail, or the pump fail, or the process fail on one side, to be able to communicate that and talk to each other about that solution elsewhere. And it sounds, okay, that's happening all the time. It wasn't happening. So the program really was as simple as we are coordinators and coordinating with each other. And that sharing of innovations and collaborations really helped to improve the 3 countries that this program was at, and to really strengthen the capabilities of the organization in the water sector, as well in the sanitation sector. The other component is the advocacy and policy and engagement. I'm in the right place to say this, but it is true. In these countries, I'm talking about specifically Ethiopia and Kenya, to be able to change, there was a lot of politicians, like in some of our countries where I'm from, for instance, like to build many schools without water. So that used to be the constant. Why? Sometimes I wish water was really going, the pipes of water was flying, right? That it was like the electricity power lights, the cables, because you could see, oh, there is work. Oh, that requires a lot of work, right? But the water is not like that. The water is under. So there was no appreciation, and there was not appreciation from the community yet to be able to sell the idea of having water access available. Rather, it was much easier to say, oh, let's build a school, and the school was visible because it had windows and walls and all of this. So it was much easier to say, oh, yes, I vote for you because you did a school. But the school didn't have water. So what are you going to do with attendance? Attendance is not going to go through. That's the kids have to still go and fetch water. And so mainly females will go to fetch water, the girls, and then what is going to happen with the rest? So the organizations got together, and it started, and instead of going one by one to the president or the minister of health saying, oh, you should put water, always put water and sanitation in your solutions, it was one voice saying, let's move this forward. Right? And then they realized one voice, not only to the Ministry of Water, but also to the Ministry of Finance, but also to the Ministry of Education. And so now we're talking about, oh, now that makes sense. Let's sit all the stakeholders at the table and provide the solutions. In this case, that's for the sanitation component. This was a project that I'm past president with this organization, Global Water Alliance, and I'm still at the board of directors. This project is very recent in Guatemala. I visited this project last year. This is a sanitation component. We're at a healthcare facility. It is as simple as being able to provide that solution. And why was the solution very important? Is because we have, in here, this community also has latrines installed in the facilities at their house, the community where they are. Access to sanitation is critical to especially females. We are, out of dignity, we really need to have a private place to go, females or males, right? But being truth, it's much easier for a male to go anywhere else than for a female, right? I mean, that's the reality. So providing that privacy, and not only for the health issues, but also for the privacy issues, it was so important for girls and for females to be able to have that. One is because, at the community level, they were able to attend school and want to stay in school. Not having the facility, the sanitation component, it was a lot of dropouts, especially at the age of 15, 12, 13, because of the menstruation. So once they got their period, they decided to quit, and that's how it is. If you don't have a place that is private to be able to change, it's not comfortable. So that's one thing that will continue the cycle of poverty. And out of being safe, because most of these females or girls had to wait until the end of the day to be able to go to a facility or a place that is, the bushes or the woods, which will risk their safety. So all of this was care, and this was an example of the solutions that was given at the with the Global Water Alliance. And now I'm going to go and jump from sanitation solutions to, and the trends to improving water quality. So this was while I was at Suez. This is a French company that has been around for a long time. It's a corporation that is focused on water, wastewater, reuse, and energy somewhat. So this is a facility where it treats wastewater, and being able to have solutions to be able to treat wastewater, it is priceless at this moment. Being able to have a solution that is able to remove all the contaminants, but now we need to think through, we're removing the contaminants, we're removing the nutrients, what else can we do with that? So the next thing we need to think through, and it's not too far away, we can do it today, is to reuse those nutrients, reuse those chemicals, reuse the water. And in some facilities in the US, already we can do that. In California, we can reuse, we have been reusing water successfully. Rules have to change, policies need to change to be able to make it more straightforward. So one of the facilities that Suez had at the time is it was a place where you could drink the water after first treatment, primary treatment, secondary treatment, tertiary treatment, which is a place where you can get the water pristine to drink, and drink it just like you have the ceramic filter here. You will drink it and then taste it. But that's not something that is still happening globally. But there is a drawback on all of this, which we need to start thinking, and that's one of the reasons I have built this decarbonization in water course. It is that all of those technologies that we need to use to be able to do this removal of the nutrients and contaminants require high energy solutions. So all of them are high energy solutions. That today, what is still relying on, okay, produce, and we need to, by compliance, we need to do whatever it takes to be able to get the water pristine, but whatever it takes means we're going to use more chemicals, we're going to use more energy, there are so many things that we need to use. And sometimes even though we may have the sensors or we know the modeling, it is either not, the technology is not there yet to be able to say, okay, I trust not to actionate this pump anymore in the aeration system so that I can save more energy. No, because there is a risk of balancing the compliance versus the energy expenses. And if we don't have yet a policy that is going to enforce me to be more energy efficient, therefore caring for the environment in the GHG, then there is it's not forcing the company as much to be able to do that other than their own self-preservation. So those are places where we can still, even though we can remove the nutrients in countries like the US, we still need to work on the energy optimization of the systems and chemical optimization of the systems. This is another example with the city of Gainesville. This will increase water use efficiency across all sectors. So a very simple solution is digitalization. It may feel that is strange to say, but sometimes, most of the time, so back then in 2000, which I was in charge of doing of setting up the GIS system for water and wastewater, that we didn't know where the assets were. So if you were going to say, okay, shut off this valve, what is the valve? You have to still use the blueprints, which is our big plans, and go and look for the valve, and not knowing what your assets are really difficult, because how are you going to then use the assets and know what to control and what to not control? So building moving into digitalization arena, building the GIS solutions, setting up sensors inside the system, will it start helping you to know, okay, I'm producing this much water, how much water am I losing? You know, if I'm producing this much water, I'm collecting this much water from the bills, maybe I'm losing something. You know, so that starts with okay, let's think about water efficiencies. How are we going to move into that? And then the next thing is the local and community participation. This is absolutely important. Everywhere. This was no, it wasn't my first job, but that was my first official role as I was the CEO of Water Authority. I was only 20 when I got that role. And I went back again to my city and started working in there I went to the capital to study, went back again to the city, and was named or elected to become the CEO for this company. And the company was receiving funds from royalties, and my state has oil, and because of the oil extractions, you get some amount of money for infrastructure, and so a point of that was given to this company, and the other point was elsewhere, like municipalities or communities, and the idea is that at that time, the coverage of water was very poor in my state. I'm from a very provincial area. Today it's more developed, but at that time, it was very underdeveloped, and the coverage of water was terrible, was very poor, and the coverage for sanitation was none. So that was what the community was, and the way to be able to move and expand this amount of money was to be able to talk to the community and work with the community. The community was adding a cost share. Sometimes it was money from their own share. Most of the time was in kind, which was their own work, right? We need to lay a pipe. We need a crew, and each family was putting one member of the family to work on a specific day, and there were crews working, and they were laying out the pipe. And that's how today we have much better infrastructure in there. There is a way of being able to identify the priority on the projects, and that still works today. And the reason I say that is because when I was facing that situation, and it's probably the situation that today also is facing many places, even in the US, for instance, with the Infrastructure Act, the Water Infrastructure Act, where they are providing funding for specific removal of specific contaminants. You don't have the funding available, and in my case also there, the funding available wasn't there for 100% of the projects. So how do you choose which project will go for or will not go for? Or which project will go first or second? So I developed a criteria where the community participation was a key component in there. If the community was interested into working in the project, or the same community was bringing the project forward, then that was the first check. Yeah, this is going to happen. Other things, this was the gender representation, making sure that whoever was coming here to be part of the committee, the water committee was 50-50. There was a 50% female representation. And also, so with this analysis, we were able, as a company, we were able to list all the projects that were available and lay out the plan, regardless of how political was the decision. And I'm saying it because I got into trouble by doing this. But the projects got into successful projects, and the impact of the projects were very, very great. In this environment, when I was working there, was a time when Colombia was in very high risk with a lot of terrorists going on, and my state in particular, and the places where it needed the most were in the middle of what was called the red zone area. And so the politicians were exercising, trying to corrupt politicians were trying to exercise pressure on me to be able to fund places where I knew by this criteria that they didn't need that funding. We didn't have enough. So I couldn't, I could not say, yeah, sure, no, we didn't have enough, and it was specific locations I needed to go for. So by setting the criteria, we signed the contracts, and everything got built. In the meantime, I was kidnapped. I was threatened for 6 months, to not do that, to continue with the plan that the corrupt politicians were trying to put me in. That's why I built that criteria, because I didn't want any loose record saying that I did something incorrectly. they sent a grenade to my house. That was the last advice, like, please do that. That's the please. And then I was held up captive for 32 days. I was in the middle of crossfire. I was in the middle of the jungle. I slept in the ground. There were plastic tents where all this. It was 32 days of nightmare. But at the end, in the middle of that time, what I didn't realize is that the same community who I was helping and the group was helping even went on the streets and called for release. And it was I know that these communities were really benefiting with these solutions, and were looking forward, building that sense of community on their own, making their own decisions, building their own rates, creating their own known profile on their own. So what all of that brings me to, I just brought you to a very long journey of my career, and at the end of the day, what I see is that there are so many common things and common traits from my process and my journey in the professional career. And one of that is coming into what is so-called right now the environmental justice. We are talking about areas that needed the most support, areas that need the most organization. We need to create that criteria. We need to understand what is the need, and that goes anywhere. That goes here in the U.S. That goes in different countries elsewhere. So because of different, and here in the U.S. there are many issues that are in the pipeline. One is the aging systems, the underinvestment, the service disruptions, contaminant of emerging concern like PFAS, wastewater overflows. And that's another topic. When we talk about PFAS, I don't know if you know what PFAS is. It's the same situation. Where are we going to start removing PFAS? That's a question that many states are going through. Once the EPA rules and then the state rules, we need to remove PFAS. We have X amount of time and money today to be able to do that process. Who starts? And that analysis needs to go in the same concept as in this pipeline, in this circle. Who goes first? We cannot remove it all at the same time. We need to remove it by applying principles, environmental justice principles. So, and going back again to the SDGs and going back again to the solutions in the water sector, these are the most common challenges that exist to be able to improve conditions everywhere. So, of course, I talk about financial constraints, technical challenges, political barriers, and the list goes on and on. And so, some of them is also capabilities, so capacity to be able to understand and to get and to learn and to go to the next level of the technology. But how are we going to really get that moving forward? There are multiple ways to be able to work together. So one of them that I see is, and the public-private partnership sounds iffy sometimes when it goes for water, but it is some of the solutions that back then, 23 years ago, 25 years ago, I instituted, and today still work, where we need to be able to see out of the box and see what solutions are in there to be able to address the issues. And that goes for water. That also goes with the decarbonization components in the water sector. To be able to understand how are we going to get to the next level, we will not be able to do it if we are on our own, or if a utility is on their own. It needs more than just the same municipality to make the decisions. Just going to skip that and go here. So what are we going to do? These are opportunities that we have for potential innovations in the sector that are going to really help to move us forward. The innovation, there are so many innovations in the water sector that are being tested, whether it is in using decentralized systems, like here, that's going back again to places where there are, in in Colombia or in East Africa where they use boreholes, those are decentralized systems. Or maybe here in the US where we have to use a decentralized water treatment plant to remove emerging contaminant. So just be thinking out of the box, that would be a solution. Setting up digital platforms for sanitation, likewise for other sectors. It's very important to be able to know what we have and how it's working. And I didn't mention as much sensors, but that is a place where we have an opportunity, especially in the water decarbonization sector, in which we can really say, what are we treating, how are we treating, let's see it. Everything that we put in our systems, that is a pump, or it really is telling a story. It does have data. So it has data, but the data is staying there. Unless we really take it and use technology, we really are not going to really use that data to do prediction. And of course, enabling for innovation and having more research and research solutions. So I went to the analysis and utilization. Water companies, yes, I just mentioned that. Every single thing that we have does have information. We have sensors that can tell us about predictive maintenance. We have portals that we can use for customers to be able to help us understand their needs. And then we have also places where we can enhance operational efficiency. And by doing that, we can really visualize what is needed and where can we save, where can we improve, and therefore, how can we improve the environment. So to finalize, this is slide, which is very simple. It really has the summary of what the water sector needs to be able to work forward and continue forward with success on the SDGs and the environment. We need to align strategies. We cannot work independently. We need to work together and align strategies and understand who the stakeholders are that are going to benefit or participate of any project. We need to overcome challenges. And of course, we have the issues with infrastructure or contaminants that we didn't know how to treat, or data collection. How are we going to understand the data and manage the data? We need to mobilize resources. We need to think about the investment. What other investments are in there? There are investments for many things. Why not for the water sector and energy? That's a place to consider. And we need to drive innovations. There are innovations that can be used. Innovations that could overcome a challenge that would have been seen elsewhere. And then also very important is a lot of these things are driven by policy and institutional innovations and willingness to work for a specific target. So that's what I have.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thanks for the interesting talk and also for your personal perspective on things, which is very illuminating.
Thank you.
We have time for questions. I actually was going to ask you just one to start, because
Sure.
I was interested in your connection between water and energy. Certainly to move water takes energy, to pump it, to treat it, whatever. But how much effort is addressed at using renewable energy for those energy demands? Because if one, as you point out, start trying to pump and treat water using fossil-based electricity, you're going to increase your greenhouse gas emissions, which will lead to more climate impacts. So I'm just interested in that perspective.
Yes, thank you. The technologies exist to be able to do to use renewable energies. That's where the policy will play a huge role, because unless for many municipalities, at least municipalities, so everybody knows, if to be able to pay for the stuff the municipalities do, they need you as ratepayers and me, right? That's how people pay. That's what entities pay for improvements. And to be able to justify that rate analysis, which is a rate change analysis, rate increase analysis, you need to say, oh, I did this because my regulator asked me to, right? So there is a fine line there because, okay, doing it out of the willing of doing it, it may take a decision on how am I going to recover that. Am I going to truly recover it because I don't have to spend that amount of energy anymore, and I have in renewables? Is it enough? When am I going to recover that? Is it going to be in 5, 10 years? That is probably way too long for them to be able to recover without the rates. So that is a fine line. The solutions are in there, and we could use them. The problem is that the other point is, in the technical aspect of engineering, let's put it that way, is understanding, there are so many unit processes in a treatment plant, in water or wastewater. What really is a variable that is a key variable for me to monitor each one, right? And so that's another place, understanding how to really quantify that energy consumption in the right way.
Well, I actually have a bit of a follow-up to that one. When we're talking about using renewable energy for these types of water uses, is it talking about harmonizing the grid and having the grid actually power those, or is it talking about renewable energy sources specifically dedicated to distributed water plants and things like that?
It could be both, because renewable energy, it could be, one is from wastewater. You can produce methane and then reuse it in different ways. But also it could be by setting up solar solutions and then having it at the facility, which will help to produce the electricity needed for high energy aspects of the plant. It could be both ways. Yes?
I'm really interested in if you could expand on how you decided, or how one would go about incorporating community engagement in grant decision-making process, or how you're going to fund these different projects. I came from the public health sphere, and we would see these grants that would try to incorporate the community, but they would come with these barriers, such as requiring formalized institutions like 501c3, which would limit us actually accessing the people who didn't have that sort of formalized networking set up in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So did you come across those barriers, or how did that work for you?
Yes, and I would say that was one of the requirements that I had when I was 25 years back again. And the reason is not the 501c3 formula was different in Colombia, right? But it is something similar. The reason we wanted that, or I wanted that, it was because you are giving money to an entity, and so what you want to preserve is that money is not going to cause a fight, or it's not going to cause an issue because of somebody being dishonest. I'm not saying that was the case, but that's just to be covered on that. And also to be able to have the decision making of an institution, maybe it wasn't the whole community, the ones that were members, but it was representative of the communities, calling Junta Comunal de Agua, and then they were responsible legally for the execution and for the money to get through. What I would say is, to your point, it is that today's grant, I'm also working on understanding the grants for the PFAS component, are very complex, are absolutely complex to build. So you could have that for the municipality being able to access those grants, but to be able to apply for them is very, very comprehensive, and it really takes a lot of time, and you hope that it's worth it, that at the end it's enough money to be able to say, okay, it was worth it. I don't know, yeah. Yes, a challenge, yes.
You talked about PFAS and the process of treating that, and that's probably very expensive, and I think most people would probably agree that the polluter-based principle would be good here. But then also talking about sensors and knowing more about use and probably also pollution of water. If you would go to a polluter-based principle for everyone, per household setting, how would that interact with the equity perspective?
Yes, that's a good point. and I'm going to answer with with a question there is, how do you know who is a polluter for PFAS, for instance?
I mean, I guess there you could go to industrial entities using it in their production process, but I'm more interested in knowing if you would have perfect information about which household pollutes water most, how would that interact with the equity system?
Yes.
Is there some kind of trend that you see that certain households pollute more than others?
In the household, residential, there is not too much differentiation. In industry, that is. So when I say I've been working in municipal water, doesn't mean that it's only residential, it's also industrial. So yes, in the industrial sector, there is a differentiation on quantity and on quality. For water use, for instance, we have the data centers. The data centers are the ones who use the most water, like good water, potable water, in the data centers, like Amazon Web Services and many data centers that exist.
For cooling,
Yes, for cooling. Yeah, but it's potable water. Right. So that's the place where you could do a differentiator there, or for the type of industry. If it is an industry that is a beer company, will have specific pollutants that sometimes are most complex to remove in a specific time, versus another type of industry that may not be producing as much effluent. So yes, there is a difference in there.
Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you.